Okay, so you've done Pythagoras. Now is the time to introduce you to the other thing that we use with right angles, and that's trigonometry. You might have heard of that before. Sounds quite complex. It isn't really, to be honest, once you get the hang of it. So, again, it's to do with right angles. So the basics are to do with right angles. However, it can be applied to non-right angle triangles as well. I'm not going to go through that right now, but just be mindful of that in the future. Here we've got a right angle triangle. You might notice that I've got an angle labelled as well as the right angle as well. That's for a good reason, because we need to know where those are in order to do the first step of any trigonometry question. Now, the sides of a right angle are named certain things, okay? Now, in Pythagoras, you know that the longest side is called the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse will always be the longest side opposite the right angle. Okay. Now you've got two other sides. One is called the adjacent, which is spelled like this, and the other is the opposite. These are very, very important to starting off a trigonometry question. Now, adjacent. If you look in the dictionary, you'll see that adjacent essentially means next to. So, the adjacent is the side that is next to both of the angles. Okay, so there's both of the angles. Which side is next to both of the angles? Well, it's this one. Okay, so that is our adjacent. The other one is, of course, the opposite, which I've already written out, which is the one that's opposite the non-right angle, the angle in question. So this one is the opposite. Okay, so that's the very basics of it. You need to know how to label these. That is step one of every single trigonometry question. Okay, because start of every trigonometry question, you're going to be doing that. Here we have the start of a trigonometry question. All I want to do right now is to label these angles. No, I don't want to do that. I want to label every side. Ignore what I just said. Okay, I'm going to label every side. Okay, so what we've got to do is we've got to look at the sides that we've got here. We only need to give names to the ones that have things on at the moment. Okay, this side here, this has nothing on it. Okay, so therefore we can completely ignore it for this question. This side here, that's the longest side. That's our hypotenuse. So I'm just going to put H next to it. On this side here, that is next to both of the angles. Adjacent means next to, doesn't it? Okay, so that's our adjacent. That's all we need to do to start with. Okay, that's one thing labelled. Here's another one to get labelled. I've stuck this one upside down just so you are aware of that can happen. Okay, so again, what have we got labelled? We haven't got anything labelled on this side. So this side we don't need to worry about at all. Okay, if in case you're wondering, that is the hypotenuse, but again, we don't need to worry about it for this question. Okay, so this side, where is it in relation to the angles? It is next to both of the angles. What does next to mean? What's a fancy word for next to? It's adjacent. Okay, this one here, that is opposite the curvy angle. Okay, so it's opposite the curvy angle, so we're going to give it a curvy letter. Okay, opposite. All right, now where do these come into trigonometry? Well, with trigonometry, you might notice if you've got a scientific calculator near you, you've got buttons on it that say sin, cos, and tan. This is where they come in useful. Okay, because you use these things called trigonometric ratios. Okay, so sine is one of them, cosine is another one, and tangent is the last one. These are the three trigonometric ratios that you must remember. Now, this is with basic ratio, and some people call basic ratio SOHCAHTOA, because that tells you which of the trigonometric ratios, which type of trig you're using for each question. Okay, Now this is hard to explain just kind of abstractly, so just using mathematical concepts. So let's actually look at one of these triangles that we've already labelled. All we're going to be doing is knowing which one we're going to be using, sine, cosine or tangent. Okay, so sine, when you're using sine, that uses the opposite side and the hypotenuse side. So, sine, opposite and hypotenuse. Cosine uses the adjacent and the hypotenuse. And tangent, TOA, uses the opposite and the adjacent. So if we're looking at this one, we have the adjacent labelled, we've got the hypotenuse labelled. Which one of these, have a think, which one of these, have a look, which one has the adjacent and the hypotenuse? It is cosine. So for this one, we're going to be using cosine. Okay, I'm not actually going to do the maths part of this right now. I just want you to know how to label the sides and to choose which trigonometric ratio. We're just going in baby steps for the time being. Okay, so this one, we've got the adjacent, we've got the hypotenuse labelled, so we're using cosine. We're using this one here. Again, I'm not going to go into the maths of it right now in this video. Okay, another one, the other one that we did here, we labelled the adjacent and the opposite. Now, which one of these uses the opposite and the adjacent? This one's got the opposite and hypotenuse, so we're not using that one. This one's the adjacent and hypotenuse, not using that one. This one's got the opposite and the adjacent. Oh look, we got the opposite, we got the adjacent. So we're going to be using tangent. We're going to be using the tan button on our calculator for this one. Again, I'm not going into the maths of this right now. I just want you to know exactly how to label this triangle. Okay, so again, I am just wanting you to label these. So today's work is literally just labeling triangles. So I want you to pause the video once I've done all these, and I just want you to label the sides of these triangles and say which trigonometric ratio, sine, cos or tan, that you are going to be using. Okay, so see which one you're going to do there, see what you're going to do there. What shall I do here? Let's go for this one. Let's do this. And let's go for this. Now, I haven't labelled them anything yet. So let's say that this one's going to be, we'll start with that one, 10 and 6. Let's say this one's going to be 14 and 10. Let's go for 13 and 18. And let's go for 71 and, oh, that's quite windy, 55. Okay, so pause the video, label them, and say which trig one of these you are going to need. Okay, so I've put them on the back of this one. Which ones are you going to need? Okay. Hopefully you've done it by now. So here's the answers. Okay, there's the right angle. There's the angle. What's next to both of them? It's this one. That's the A. And this is the longest side, the H. So for this one, we're going to be using cos. For this one, we've got something that is opposite the angle there and something that is next to both the angles there. So we're going to be using O and A, which is tan. This one we've got next to, and we've got the hypotenuse, which is again cos, and this one we've got next to, and we've got the hypotenuse again, we've got cos. I didn't do any sine ones for a reason, because I thought, you know what, people are going to be expecting that. Okay, that's today's work. Quick 10-minute lesson for you. So I'm saving you 40 minutes of maths, aren't I? Thank you very much.